Broadcasting from the Hyatt Regency in Seattle, Washington, Solutions Review is on location at the FME User Conference 2025, the peak of data and AI. Brought to you by Safe Software.
We are back with a Safe Software keynote speaker, Brian Evergreen, from the Future Solving Company.
That's right.
I love this name.
Thank you.
And a former Microsoft AI lead. So you've been around the block, and we're in your hometown, actually. So you've been around this block, probably.
I have been around this block. This very hotel, in fact.
So what were you keynoting about? I unfortunately missed it because I was sitting here interviewing folks.
Understandable. I spoke about how to think like a Fortune 10 AI leader.
Okay.
So I broke down, my goal was to break down the skills, because everyone knows that if you're going to be leading AI initiatives at any company, you have to understand what AI is, right? There's some certain basic things everyone knows, but anything beyond that, things like really understanding strategy, understanding how to create new value, understanding systems, understanding, being strong storyteller. There's some other skills that often aren't something that we just learn either in university or at our MBA or necessarily in on-the-job training. It usually ends up being sort of by the wayside, and the skills that you had to develop to get into that leadership position might not necessarily, might not include some of the new skills that you need, especially now as we're entering a new era.
Well, so let's talk about those skills, and then I'll start throwing the curveballs at you. But okay. I'll save those for after this.
Okay.
Because I want to hear so you have 7 strategies?
7 skills.
7 skills.
7, yeah.
So I'd like to hear what those skills are.
Sure. Well, the first, and not necessarily skills, but traits would be a better way to put it.
Yeah.
The first would be that a trait of a Fortune 10 AI leader that you'll see almost across the board is, and if you think about this through the lens of even beyond AI, like Satya Nadella or Steve Jobs, it'll immediately resonate of, yes, those leaders had those traits, even if we weren't thinking about it that way.
Yeah.
The first is that they have the skill of vision. They start with vision, first and foremost. So any meeting that you if you take a strong leader with this trait and drop them into a meeting, and they look around and they say, okay, so we're talking about what we're doing, but just real quick, can we zoom out? I need to understand why we're doing this.
Can this trait be trained? Can you learn vision?
So vision, and that's part of what I covered, is that vision is a skill, just like learning JavaScript or just like learning the piano or anything else.
You can train vision.
You can build the skill of vision.
You can.
And I know this firsthand because I actually was an internationally competitive chess player as a kid.
Okay.
And I realized not till much later the value that it had in my own vision and visioning skill building, because when you're sitting there at a chessboard and you can't look to anyone else, no one can tell you what to do. That's cheating. So you have to come up with a vision for what it is you're going to try to do to win. And then you're also getting an immediate feedback loop of, okay, I had a vision, I created a strategy to achieve it, I started executing, and now I lost. Okay, so what didn't work? And you're getting that feedback loop over and over again. But a lot of times in organizations, someone else already came up with a vision, they just handed you an objective and said, you need to go do this. Right? And so you're not needing to build a vision then at that point. But it's not because you couldn't build that skill. You just haven't had the opportunity to.
It's interesting. What's the next skill?
The next one is that they're future solvers. And so problem solving is distinct from future solving.
Okay.
I sort of codified future solving in my book Autonomous Transformation. Distinct from problem solving, but those who are familiar with Amazon's future back approach it'll resonate with them, because essentially problem solving is the craft of getting rid of what you don't want.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're trying to eliminate things, right, in the problem solving mechanism. And so if your organization starts with what are all the problems we need to solve, you're looking for things you don't like and you're going to try to get rid of them. But that getting rid of what you don't want doesn't necessarily get you what you do want. So the iPhone didn't come about because they were trying to solve a problem with an existing phone. They imagined something entirely new. And this is true for anything new that we've developed as people, is there was some new thing we wanted to create. And sometimes, a new innovation comes because we didn't like dealing with a given problem, but more often than not, it starts from a vision of something new, and then we solve for that future we want to create, as opposed to just piecemeal solving problem after problem.
Okay. I'm with you so far. 3?
3 is that they're strategists. So most people don't think of themselves as strategists, or unless their role is overtly, I am a strategy lead, or I'm an M&A strategy, or something like that. But if you think about it, like any given person, from the moment you wake up till the moment you go to bed, you're implementing and coming up with strategies to achieve whatever your goals are. So if you're trying to adhere to a certain type of diet you're trying to go by, for example, there's strategy in that, because whether or not you choose to buy the potato chips at the store, or you're going to stay home and order everything on Prime Now because you don't want to be tempted, or whatever, you're effectively making strategy choices.
Sure.
Even there. And so, and it scales to any organization, any person. So you could have a role in data and how you're going to take these disparate data sets, organize them, make them more performant. Like, that's all strategy work. It's just technical strategy.
Yep.
Right. And so everyone in their role is and should be a strategist, unless they have like purely transactional roles. But I think a lot of people don't think of themselves that way.
Okay.
And therefore don't work on the skill necessarily overtly, or focus on it.
I want to come back to some of these, but I want to go through the 7 first.
Well, this is a good test, because before I had a PowerPoint guiding me.
Do we know what number 4 is?
I think I can. I mean, for sure. I mean, it might be out of order from what I shared there. But
that's fine.
Another one is that they understand systems, and so like from a systems thinking perspective. And so
I like this whole thing.
Good.
I like exactly what you're doing.
Okay, awesome.
Makes a lot of sense.
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
So systems thinking, that it's there's some really amazing things. So when I was in my position at Microsoft, leading AI strategy for Microsoft US, I was meeting with Fortune 500 C-level exec teams to discuss their AI strategy and what they were going to do around AI, right? And I kept running into these different potholes at different points, and figuring,
I'll bet.
I can't be the first person that's run into this. Someone has to have solved this before. And I went and looked at the digital transformation playbook and all the best thinking there, and realized that's not translating well, because AI is so different.
Has nobody ever achieved digital transformation?
Well, maybe. No, for me it was that when you're going from analog to digital, that's just different than going from analog and digital to something more like autonomous. And so it's a different era. It's a different form of transformation. And so the playbooks that everybody had was not working, but I thought, I know there's been a lot of smart people throughout history. So what I ended up, when I went out to write my book, I did a lot of research, and I did over 50 interviews. And what I ended up resurfacing was, there's these things from the systems thinking movement from the 1950s that have been lost to time. And one of them, systems thinking in general is, I wish it were so much more pervasive than it is, but so often it's put in very pedantic, very difficult to understand.
I want to hit all these deeper, but I want to get through this, because that's another one I want to hit deeper.
Yep. So
we're going to be here a while. We're going to be here a while.
That's fine. So they understand systems is that one, and then the one after that is that, remember, we're in my hometown, so I've got time. So after understanding systems, then it's that they value expertise. So I bet you a lot of other people that would sit in this chair would tell you data is the most important thing going on right now. It's the new oil. It's the greatest.
Well,
and I'm not.
I'm going to hit this one. We're not going to be able to get over this one.
That's fine. Let's do it. But what I'll say is that data is exhaust that you leave behind as your decisions, and the decisions are applied expertise, right? And so you have expertise, you're applying that expertise to make a decision, take action, and then data is the exhaustion behind it. So if you were to go into any organization and say, any real major organization, and say, we're going to lay off your entire workforce, we're going to give you the top 100 data scientists in the world, and you get to keep all your data, and they get to use all your data, but no experts are there to explain anything to them, and all your experts are gone, just the data. Would any leader take? Of course not.
Well, so
let's say we're a data science shop.
Well, isn't expertise now data?
I don't think expertise is data.
But isn't it with AI? Isn't that the nature of AI, making expertise data?
I think the goal of AI is to recreate semblances of expertise. But AI doesn't actually have expertise. So if if I were to say,
Interesting.
So if I were to ask a language model for a recipe for whiskey,
Yes.
and I say, hey, this is what I got right now on my fridge. I took a picture and it saw everything I had in my fridge, and it said, okay, and it didn't. Let's say I have ketchup in my fridge. The language model is not going to put ketchup in my whiskey drink recipe, not because it has the expertise and understanding of how gross that would taste the way that we do, but because there's a lack of correlation in the data set. So that's not real expertise.
Well, but that's introducing new data to the existing data. My point is that a large language model has all the expertise in it. It's consumed all expertise.
Consumed
Anything
expertise
published,
maybe, but it doesn't.
but then it
itself have
synthesizes it in a neural network that is designed to effectively do what the human brain does, which is what we've been doing forever, which is synthesizing thoughts we've learned from others into new thoughts.
I have to disagree with you there because if you think about, if I had, let's say that I were to take a auto mechanic handbook, but I don't even necessarily read the sentences. I just memorize all the words, and I find the correlations between, like, every time there's transmission, there's this much likelihood that the next word is going to be, plug. I'm just making this up, and I've memorized all those correlations, but I've never touched a car. Would you want me to go fix your car?
Would I know?
I don't have the expertise.
Would I know?
Because true expertise is a combination of.
But would I know? You'd represent yourself as if you had. That's what
And
large
your
large
car would
language
get
models do.
Broken.
Well, would it? What if it were right? I mean, that's the intent. It is right.
The intent is for it to be right, but I think it might be.
And it's not telling you necessarily, unless you ask it to, that it's ever done it.
Sure, but
it's going to represent itself in its 100% certainty.
For sure, it's going to represent, yes, which is its own issue. But what I was going to say is that from an expertise perspective, just to zoom back over to that, if you have to truly have expertise, like if you think about how, I guess it gets back to how we define expertise. So if someone said, I'm an expert in AI, and I say, oh, okay.
You're an expert in AI.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
So I myself have, and even writing the writing of a book about AI isn't what made me an expert.
Or everything else you've written. And
even that doesn't make me an expert. Having applied experience.
It's a representation of your expertise.
Yes.
And so it's the best representation of your expertise to another entity. Like, you can say you're an expert, but I can't judge that until I read your book. Now I believe. So your book is your expertise to me, as far as I'm concerned. Or if I'm an LLM.
But if you ask
that's
an
what
LLM
I'll consume
about the main points from my book, I disagree with the summaries and conclusions that it's making.
Well, but I would say that's just a small factor in its larger consideration model. That it's going to take your book and it's going to take all the other things that are
right, that my book might be
contiguous.
countercultural against or what have you.
Right, and it's going to synthesize what's number 6?
Yeah, I think we could go on all day about this.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah. So, but it's good to be able to respectfully disagree and.
Yeah,
and
no.
talk
I'm yeah. I've got
so
strong
yeah,
opinions
the fourth
about
or the
this.
fifth one I think I said was that they value expertise.
Yes,
so that's
correct.
one. And I think by the nature of how these things tend to go, I'm forgetting. I know what the seventh one is, and maybe
That's
I'll end
okay.
up with the sixth one. But
What's
the seventh was that they're storytellers.
Yep.
And so, because your vision and strategy are never going to, in terms of their ability to manifest in the world, will never exceed your storytelling ability. So you could have the example I gave in there is you could have a vision to cure cancer. You could even have a really good strategy to cure cancer. But if you can't articulate that in a way that means people are actually going to go do the things that you have envisioned in the strategy you've developed, then I
couldn't agree with you more.
Effectively becomes useless, even though it was a great vision and a great strategy. And so, if you think about Steve Jobs, you think about Satya
That's how
Nadella,
you get
these
people
other
to follow
leaders,
you. That you
being
tell
able
a story of where you want to go.
That's right.
It's absolutely true.
So,
I think that's well thought out. It doesn't matter what 6 is, although I'm sure it's good as well. Well, let's go back to 1, which is
vision. No, 1 was vision.
Oh, 1 was vision. Strategy. Number
3
2
was strategy.
3.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about strategy.
Okay.
So now I appreciate that you're saying to be to have the what is it, the top 10, what the Fortune 10,
how to think like a Fortune 10 AI
right
leader.
So
Or
I
it could
get
be
that
any
how
leader.
the Fortune 10 would need an AI strategy, but does everybody?
Need an AI strategy?
Yeah.
Great question. I think that everyone needs a strategy, and that strategy should account for AI, but I don't think they should be starting with AI as a tool and trying to develop a strategy through that lens.
Why?
Because the way I describe it is, it's like if I were a general contractor and you want to do a remodel, and I showed up to your house with a hammer and a saw, and I said, all right, let's get started. Let's walk around your house and see how I'm going to make your house better with this hammer and saw. You would think, this person's crazy. Like, why did I hire this person to do my remodel? Versus instead saying, okay, let's talk about the goals that we have. You want a bigger shower, or you want a bigger counter space, or you want a new room added to the side or something. So, and then work backwards from there to figure out, okay, based on that outcome that we want, and you generalize that to the enterprise context, based on the value you're trying to create or the outcome that you want, AI might be the right tool, but it might not be. It might be a policy. Like this great example is a manufacturing plant, Georgia Pacific. They had a manufacturing plant where they just had a lot of turnover. People were quitting, and the IT team wanted to have them to do a big digital transformation initiative, get everybody like connected headsets and digital worker type stuff. And one of the plant leaders said, well, let's ask the people why they're leaving when they leave at first and just see what we learn. Turns out that they didn't know who to ask for help. And so you might be able to think, okay, I guess if they had connected worker stuff, that might have helped. What they came up with, though, that worked perfectly, like their turnover just like dropped off, like almost, back down to normal industry standards.
Yeah.
Was that they just had a different color T-shirt that all the leaders you could go ask questions of, or a different color T-shirt, and it dramatically dropped. So if you come at that problem with the AI tool trying to solve it, you could have spent hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars, when what's actually needed was
I get you. But now we do have AI. I mean
they had AI back then, and this wasn't long ago.
But did they? Did they really? I mean, I feel like AI is not even here yet. It's like it's barely here. I mean, I appreciate that there's been, automation and machine learning and all the other buzzword terms that we can.
Advanced analytics.
Yeah. But have we really had AI in the way that it's becoming available to us? And I would argue, and I'd argue against myself, because I would argue that we don't all need an AI strategy. But I would argue that a contractor might, because a contractor can augment their weakness in design with the benefits of a design AI strategy that would assuage one party in the couple, paradigm of working on a home remodel that could be more receptive to, a design aesthetic rather than just the nuts and bolts of building the plan.
Yeah, I mean, definitely that. I think anyone and everyone, by having some AI literacy, that's what I usually say is, instead of thinking of it just as like we're going to come up with an AI strategy because you've chosen an outcome already without any knowledge, instead say we're going to gain AI literacy in our leadership team, and then based on that literacy, we'll reassess our existing strategy and say, are there ways that we're investing in something that actually that would be better if we pivoted and had leveraged AI in that space or not? But I think that there's been a tendency for a lot of boards looking down at their top levels leaders and saying you need to have an AI strategy, and then that ends up becoming, okay, we're going to teach everybody how to prompt, which to me is the equivalent of if you wanted to
Let's talk about that.
If you wanted to create Duomo in Italy, you wouldn't start by teaching everyone in Italy how to use hammers and think, let's pick some use cases, eventually we'll get Duomo. You would say, we need to design this thing, we need to figure out the math and the physics, will this actually even work? We need to make sure we're sourcing the materials, we're setting aside the resources and the funds. It's a huge initiative. But a lot of organizations answer to check off the box of being AI enabled is just, let's get everybody prompting and hope things bubble
No, I
up.
know. So let's talk about that. So I would argue that large organizations right now are frozen solid. They don't know what to do. They have been given this superpower,
Right?
and they're being asked at the board level down,
That's right. Go figure it out.
get this going.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think they have the confidence or the comfort or even the tool set yet to know what to do. It feels like this is the web browser has just arrived, and they haven't gotten
They're on
e-commerce. Yeah, they're literally on Netscape. They're bouncing around. They've been given the power to fly, and they're ricocheting around the room, and they don't know what to do.
I love that analogy. I might borrow that.
Well, that's fine. I feel like there's been $200 billion of venture capital invested in startups that are coming,
Right.
that are building right now, but they haven't arrived yet. It feels like we're waiting for Salesforce to make the cloud relevant. Do you know what I
Right,
mean? There's
yeah,
always
yeah.
there needs to be that killer app, right? Lotus Notes, whatever it was. Not Lotus Notes. 123? Lotus 123? We need the killer app, and we haven't gotten the killer app. ChatGPT is not the killer app.
It's not.
It's just a demonstration, like a web browser.
It's like a really great demo that people can get some
It's like
some
Netscape
value out of.
Navigator. We haven't gotten e-commerce.
I mean,
we haven't
or if
gotten,
you think about
social
like
networks.
the difference between when we had AOL Instant Messenger, and you could message with people and it felt amazing. You could message people all over the world live, but that's different than where we're at today, right?
So back to strategy. So what do you tell a company that legitimately says, I don't think the tools have gotten here yet, and I don't feel like we should be going off and building anything because we don't know what's coming. The sales guys haven't been knocking on the door yet
I see what
saying
you're saying. Yeah, like
that we've got it all figured out. Just give us $29 a month from every employee and we'll solve all your problems.
right. Yeah, so I think that
Is that stuff coming, first of all? Do you think that the $200 billion that have been invested in AI startups is going to yield the next Salesforce.com, the next...
it's a weighty question. I don't know everything about every startup in the whole space.
Yeah, no, I'm
but
not.
what I will say is, so far from what I've seen, I don't think it's not a scourge on any single company, but a lot of them are very focused on the consumer space more so than the enterprise
seems
space.
crazy.
It does seem crazy to those of us who know the enterprise space. It seems obvious that
Right.
like
That's
that's a
where the
killer
money
market,
is.
right? And so, but yeah, I think that there are some, and they might, there's some that I actually work with that I think are very promising, but I don't think that this is something that. So I'm teaching a course. I don't know if you know who Cassie Kozerkoff and Pascal Bornet are, but we're teaching a course together, the three of us. And I love how Cassie put it. She recently shared about it, and she said, "There's no easy button when it comes to AI, and anyone who's telling you there is probably trying to sell you something. The easy. I have the easy button, basically pay for my thing, pay for my course, whatever. But there's no easy button, and so the sooner you come to grips with that and decide." Oh, there's no easy button. Like the famous quotation, people miss opportunity because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work.
Yeah.
That's what AI is. There's not a just quick, just get it done. Just, hey, just get some prompts set up and we'll have some agents. They'll all talk to each other. They'll do all the work and we won't need to work anymore. Like that's actually crazy to imagine that'll actually create value. Yeah.
I gotta believe that's exactly how it's going to arrive.
Would you
it's going to arrive in a SaaS model that you can just buy.
So would you hire someone who hallucinated? They're like, hey, you go through the interview round and you're like, this person's amazing. And they say, I do need to let you know that I hallucinate about 20 to 30% of the time. Would you hire them?
No, obviously not. But
Right.
the hallucinations will eventually go away.
Not with the current architectural patterns.
We're all sure of it. We can cure the hallucinations, aren't we?
I'm not. Not with the current architectural patterns. There's no. I mean, it's like if you push harder on a truck as an individual person, thinking you're going to push the truck. If it's a giant semi, like it doesn't matter how hard you push. That's not the way you're going to move the truck forward. But if you get in the truck and turn it on and push on the gas, You can fly right past. So I think what's happened is that they found a way that works, that I think none of us in the AI space were expecting to work as well as it did, or to be as viral of a demo that turned into this sudden overnight success. Because to me, there were other areas of AI and AI research that I thought were, and still think are, much more valuable than Gen AI. But
I'm sure.
This one exploded, and so then the other 27 categories of AI have pretty much fallen out of the limelight while everyone talks about Gen AI.
Yeah.
So,
But Microsoft is famous for being able to kind of, destroy, destroy Netscape Navigator.
Oh no, I'm not saying destroying other companies.
I'm just saying that the big companies are they're gonna ultimately probably win, just because they'll just bring so much, or they'll just acquire everybody. I mean, IBM,
like
the IBM model or whoever. Yeah. It feels to me like that it's inevitable that the tools will arrive and the tools will work. It's kind of like, I remember when I first saw browsers, and I thought, there's no way in God's green earth I'm going to put my credit card into that thing. I will never do that. That's insane. I don't want anybody to send me marketing messages via email. It's like all this stuff.
And now, thanks to Seth Godin's permission marketing, right?
Well, paradigms change.
They do change. I think that the way that we do work in our organizations is so complex that the idea it's sort of almost to the point of irreducible complexity, like in the sense, and it's specific. It's like DNA, right? Within each organization, even two manufacturers, two banks, like the amount of and because organizations, I'm going to say they're like Shrek, just as a joke, because the joke how he says ogres have layers like onions. Organizations have layers, right? The base layer is a physical layer. Then there's the digital, which has AI, software, etc. And then there's the social layer. So if there didn't exist a social layer, maybe AI could get to the point where it'd just be plug and play, but there's a social layer in every organization. It takes one person to kill any project. If they don't like it, they don't think it's going to be useful for them or their team, like just one, because the overlap of those, so everyone talks about AI is the easy part of technology transformation. The hard part is the people.
Let's talk about it. And I'm with you on the fact that companies need to dig in and start creating custom strategies that are going to have to wear overalls and be built.
That's right.
I get it. I agree with that. And you might as well start now and not be paralyzed,
right,
and watch it all happen, because you will be left behind.
Which speaks to I remember the seventh one.
Okay.
Of the traits. The seventh one, which was technically number 6 in the presentation, but was that these kinds of leaders, a trait they have is that they create new value. And I think that's really key, because when it comes to any given new technology, it's very easy and intuitive to start with the value that you're already creating and figure out how can we create that same value more efficiently, more cost effectively, etc. But the overlap, I actually created a visual in an article I wrote for VentureBeat, where we said that if you look at a circle of the total addressable value creation of any given organization as a big circle that you'll never fully fill, because you can always create more value that your market would be willing to pay for, and you could be profitable. But within that is an amount that's addressable by humans. And then there's another circle that's addressable by AI agents. And there's this overlap between those two. And that's where everybody's really focused right now is, let's create an AI SDR, let's create an AI software developer or whatever.
Right, because capitalism is undefeated. And we can get rid of all those bodies.
Well, I think that's a theory that we could. And but what I'd say is where AI agents and just AI in general, where the real opportunity is all that value creation that doesn't overlap, with its new value. Things that, if you think about it, and an example that I gave up there was if you and I each owned a construction company, you're from Boston, I'm from Seattle, and I call up a local lumber company and say, hey, I need this amount of lumber, this quality, this whatever. They look in their databases and they find, oh, we only have it at a yard in Boston. And then you call up and so I have to drop a purchase order, or the truck driver is going to drive it across the country. You call up a different lumber company, not the same one, right? And then you say, hey, I need lumber. Turns out it's the same order, but they look in their database and they only have it in Seattle. And now we're each paying for this inefficiency of driving across. They'll pass each other on the freeway, right?
Yeah.
And so, but if in today's world, that makes sense, because it would be so inefficient for every lumber company, and you can generalize that across every industry, but inefficient for them to call each other up. Why would they have business models for trading customers in scenarios like that? Because it'd be too inefficient for them to call and check with each other on where they have lumber stored. In the agentic AI paradigm, that can happen in milliseconds. They could trade customers. They could check, okay, you have lumber in Boston. There's a customer in Boston. We'll pay you a small referral fee, and then we'll take care of the customer, lower cost to the customer.
And that will happen how?
So it's a concept I
sovereign.
call the Internet of Agents. So we're used to thinking about
But won't they be sovereign? Like, I don't want my
Sovereign?
agent to my control. Like, I don't want you intermingling with making deals off on the side like they're mine. That's my
So
agent.
you'll be sovereign, not the agent.
So, well, the agent's part of my sovereignty.
Right. It's the fiefdom in this case.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do I want my agent out there, intermingling with other?
You wouldn't be saying, hey, agent, go figure out any company in the whole world that you could. It would be, back to the point of the overalls and the work, it would be that you might define, now that we have this new capability that hasn't existed before, we could create within our value streams, we could work with
Like
other
an interstate?
organizations to create like standards and protocol approach to say these are the types of negotiations and transactions.
So that sounds like a Microsoft level, like
strategy.
Well, it sounds like a Microsoft level initiative that they would create a coalition with the largest technology companies similar to, the
like the
internet
sustainability
protocol.
effort or internet. You're right. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, we're all going to agree to be on the same
but it doesn't have
agentic highway, and
probably
we'll be able to
the
communicate
hyperscalers will
before we
be-
cross one another going across the country. We'll be able
to save that
navigate the
inefficiency
traffic.
and it'll save.
and you
from
think
a
that,
sustainability.
and do you see that? I mean, that's an interesting idea. Do you see
I think that-
coming to bear?
I think that what'll happen is different value streams. It'll probably start as like maybe two organizations in a given market. We'll find those new opportunities and think, oh, that would be valuable for our customer and for us and even our competitors maybe.
Yeah, no, it
so
feels
it's
like it
worth
would be
creating that coalition. So then we'll pick a hyperscaler and experiment with it. So it might be Microsoft, might be they pick Google,
It's
someone
like
else.
a standard.
Yeah.
It's like creating an industry standard.
And I think it'll,
like a
to your
protocol.
point about capitalism, I think it'll follow where the most value can be created. And so
It's an
if
interesting idea. I like it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But that's the Internet of Agents. So we think about the version of the internet as it exists today as a window pane, right, that we're looking into, that we can interact with all these systems. But AI agents can interact devoid of the window pane. So if I had an agent buying on my behalf, for example, I wouldn't have to say, I could just say, I've got a party coming up. I want you get everything I need to make this French stew, find a great recipe. I don't care where it's coming from. Like marketing changes now, because I don't care where it's coming from. If it's Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, if I haven't specified that, the agent's going to go for price, value, and logistics, and just make those decisions for me, unless I explicitly say I want, a specific brand. And so then the emotional appeal that marketing advertisers and they're also.
Won't that be one of the killer apps? Is that we've created agents that are on that protocol and that have less hallucinations, and that, I mean, there will be kind of a winners, right?
There will be
There'll
winners.
be Chrome, which is a better browser than Internet
Don't say it.
Explorer.
Don't say it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, you're right, and I think there will be, but I think that from a killer app perspective, I think it's going to be. I think that a lot of organizations are the startups like OpenAI, and I think they're in pursuit of the Jarvis dream, right? Or Her, the Samantha character from Her, right? They want to create that killer consumer app that would take care of all those things for you, because of course there'd be so much value there, and it would create the basis for a whole new marketplace. That there's going to need to be like a version of Square that helps any and every retailer and all these other organizations
isn't it expectations?
interface with and sell to those agents.
There'll be expectations about that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
But
been
then
created
whoever-
in our mind as what it should be.
and
Like,
whoever, it's a two-sided market
like
strategy because
things on our wrist, like Dick Tracy. I mean, we're gonna have expectations around what AI does and what
we
robots do and what we
will.
already do.
Isaac Asimov's 3 laws, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think that it's a two-sided market strategy, and I think OpenAI and some others are really focused on winning one side of it, because then they'll be able to control the other half. So if they can own all the consumers and the interface to the agentic world, then they can basically
Isn't that out of the barn,
lay
man?
out the rules.
There's no chance anymore of that, right? They
What do you
can't
mean?
win it. They can't win.
OpenAI?
Yeah. Can they win?
I don't know. I don't want to say.
Is there
whether
gonna
they
be
can
one
or
winner?
can't. I mean, I think there will be. I mean, there's certainly going to be front runners, and I think that the same way that OpenAI had that initial rush of before Claude and others sort of introduced similar enough models that that there's now multiple. I think that if OpenAI can break, or any company, whichever one breaks through really into the agentic AI space on the consumer side, where I can actually the Rabbit R1 was going to be, but wasn't. If they could, but what it was going to be, that vision.
I'm with you.
If it had been executed to the point where I actually could just say, "Hey, I need an Uber to pick me up downstairs," and "Hey, I want this for dinner at DoorDash, go take care of it." Whoever can actually achieve that first, will have such a strong first to market advantage that they're gonna. It would be tough to catch up.
This is the fascinating conversation. I'm gonna pull the plug.
All right.
on this, only because we have to do others. But
no problem.
I appreciate you coming by.
My pleasure.
It's fascinating talking to you.
Thank you.
Likewise,
I've
we're
enjoyed it.
doing all kinds of stuff with Insight Jam and Solutions Review. So expect at a minimum a LinkedIn invitation.
Perfect. I'll count on it.
We'll connect and maybe get you involved in other stuff. But
okay.
Best of luck with the book.
Awesome. Thank you.
Best of luck with speaking engagements. I love it. It's great talking to you. Thanks, Brian.
Likewise. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.